Alternative ending: reincarnation of the strongest sword god. Chapter 51 Zero Wings Outer Member. Ancient God's Blood. Am I dreaming? Galaxy Past's eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at the strand of ancient God's blood stored in the crystal vial in Shi Feng's hand. In the current era where gods had gone into seclusion, it was incredibly rare to come across even the possession of normal gods. Meanwhile, ancient gods were the most ancient existences among gods, and the possessions of ancient gods were incredibly rare even during the ancient era, let alone the modern era. It was especially true for an ancient god's precious blood. At this time, even the knowledgeable hidden soul was shocked and confused by the strand of ancient god's blood before her. Compared to Galaxy Past, Hidden Soul had a much more extensive information network in God's domain. Hence, she knew that there were only a few ancient gods' possessions that had been found in the current God's domain. She also knew the identity of these items, but none of them was as precious as the ancient God's blood. Even in the other gods' domains she visited, she had never heard of anything like the ancient God's blood. However, just when Hidden Soul and Galaxy Past were about to ask about the ancient God's blood's authenticity, a terrifying divine might suddenly descended upon the room once more. Immediately, both Hidden Soul and Galaxy Past fell flat to the floor again, neither of them able to put up any resistance. Meanwhile, the origin of this divine might was none other than the strand of purple gold blood inside the crystal vial. Seeing the two people before him falling to the floor once more, Shi Feng returned the ancient god's blood into his bag and said, "You've experienced the divine might. This thing radiates for yourself now. Meanwhile, its effects are what I just told you. It can strengthen a player's mana body once, but to what extent depends on the player using it. At most, it can strengthen a mana body up to the epic rank. This thing, no, this ancient god's blood." After struggling to stand up again, Hidden Soul asked Shi Feng, "Can Zero Wings outer members exchange for it?" Hearing Hidden Soul's question, Galaxy Past, who remained lying on the floor, perked up his ears in interest. After all, he'd be lying if he said he wasn't interested in obtaining an epic mana body. Otherwise, he wouldn't have abandoned his original level and achievements to restart his progress in the miniature ancient world. "Yes," Shi Feng said, smiling when he saw Hidden Soul's interest toward the ancient god's blood. "Are you interested in joining Zero Wing now?" During Shi Feng's previous life, Hidden Soul was one of the Flower of Seven Sin's 7 commanders. Back then, her strength ranked at the very top even in the greater God's domain. Although Shi Feng didn't know why Hidden Soul would suddenly become a former commander of the Flower of Seven Sins in this life, it'd be a huge loss if he let her slip out of his grasp. After all, not only was Hidden Soul a domain realm expert, but she was even someone who had already taken the next step in the domain realm. Even if she wasn't as strong as she was in her previous life, she could still be regarded as a first-rate god-ranked expert in the greater God's domain. It should be known that Shi Feng's current physique in the real world was terrible. The state of his mind was also dragged down because of his poor physique. In a fight of pure skill, he would be no match for Hidden Soul whatsoever. Hence, if he could recruit Hidden Soul into Zero Wing, it'd help him significantly. "I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested," Hidden Soul said after taking a deep breath. Then, she turned to Galaxy Past, who had just stood up, and earnestly said, "I will remember the favor you've done for me this time. As per our agreement, I will work together with you to earn points from now on." "It's great that you're willing to join," Galaxy Past said with a happy smile. "I guess we are allies now." "Okay. Since you wish to join, here's the contract," Shi Feng said, nodding as he passed the magic contract he prepared beforehand to Hidden Soul. Then, he turned to Galaxy Past and continued, "Since you invited a domain realm expert this time, you will receive 50,000 Zero Wing points and 1 additional invitation slot." After saying so, Shi Feng took out 2 lists from his bag and handed them to the 2 people before him. "These are the items outer members can exchange. There is also a list of tasks and items you can use to acquire points. Take a look at them yourselves." After acquiring the mana protection crystals, Shi Feng had drawn up an item exchange list and task list to help create a positive development cycle for Zero Wing while also ensuring that things didn't get out of his control. Currently, Zero Wing offered 3 services as an alliance. The first service was the exchange of Zero Wing points for items. The second service was the acquisition of points through tasks. The third service was the acquisition of points through item exchanges. As calculating and managing points was a relatively easy task, Shi Feng could leave it to the hotel's NPC receptionist, Blakeyana. So expensive Galaxy Past was flabbergasted when he saw the list of items available for exchange. Currently, there were only 3 items available for exchange. The first item was the Holy Annihilation Mana technique. It cost 40 million points, significantly less than his previous predictions. Even so, exchanging for the technique wouldn't be an easy task. After all, 40 million points were equivalent to 40 million gold. It was a significant sum of money that even the various superpowers would need some time to accumulate. The second item on the list was the Ancient God's Blood. It cost 10 million points to exchange. If converted to coins, it was an amount that would take a top-tier first-rate guild like the Star Alliance a significant amount of time to exchange. Although it was still incredibly expensive, it was far less unattainable than the Holy Annihilation technique. The third item up for exchange wasn't exactly an item. Instead, it was an opportunity to receive pointers. Each opportunity cost 1 million points. Although this was an astronomical price to pay for mere guidance, it was a worthwhile exchange if one could receive some inspiration when stuck at a bottleneck. However, the biggest problem here wasn't the cost of these items. Instead, the main problem was the lack of methods Shi Feng provided to acquire points. Currently, there was only one task on the task list, and that was to guide players. They would receive 500,000 points if they could help an appointed player reach the Refinement Realm, 2 million points for reaching the Flowing Water Realm, and 5 million points for reaching the Void Realm. While the rewards of this task might seem lucrative, helping a non-Refinement Realm player reach the Refinement Realm was easier said than done. It was a process highly dependent on luck, and the process could take anywhere from several days to several years. It was even more so for the Flowing Water Realm and Void Realm. Apart from tasks, the only other method of acquiring points was trading in items. Currently, there were only 3 items they could exchange for points. The first item was 7 Luminaries crystals, something which all powers in God's domain needed. 1 unit of 7 Luminaries crystal could be traded for 5,000 points. In coins, that was the current market rate for 7 Luminaries crystals. Only, nobody would trade 1 unit of 7 Luminaries crystal for 5,000 coins. The second item was the Holy Sword Broken Steel. It was one of the famed swords in God's domain, and it could be exchanged for 10 million Zero Wing points. The amount of points Shi Feng offered far exceeded the actual value of the Holy Sword. However, Broken Steel was currently in a mighty expert's possession. Even if said expert was no longer using the Holy Sword, it wouldn't be easy to get it off his hands. The third item was legendary materials such as dragon fangs, dragon claws, dragon scales, etc. Each material could be exchanged for 5,000 points. The price could also be considered reasonable. However, such materials typically came from dragons or inferior dragons, so obtaining them would be very challenging. If you wish to trade in items for points, you can do it with me here or Blakeyana at the front desk, Shi Feng said. If you wish to receive pointers, you will have to wait until I am present in the Candlelight Hotel. Afterward, Hidden Soul and Galaxy Past discussed something privately with each other. Then, Hidden Soul chose to accept the teaching job while Galaxy Past logged out of the game immediately. Evidently, Galaxy Past planned to mobilize the Star Alliance to acquire some of the items on the item exchange list. Mr. Black Flame, how many players can I teach at a time for this teaching task? Hidden Soul asked after giving the matter some thought. You can teach at most 5 players at a time, Shi Feng explained. You also can't change your students unless they reach one of the 3 milestones. Originally, Shi Feng had planned to teach his students himself. However, he simply had too many things to do now that he had just established Zero Wing. Not to mention, he had just gained a domain realm expert like Hidden Soul. It'd be a huge waste not to make proper use of her expertise. Do I instruct them in God's domain? Hidden Soul asked another question. That's right. Shi Feng nodded. However, you must keep everything about yourself a secret from these people. All you need to do is instruct them. That won't be a problem. I'll keep my cloak on at all times, Hidden Soul answered without hesitation. Can I start now, then? As a former commander of the Flower of Seven Sins, keeping secrets was her forte. Although she didn't know why Shi Feng wasn't doing the teaching himself, she understood that some questions were best left unasked. It was especially true when the questions involved Zero Wing, a guild capable of offering items such as the ancient god's blood and god legacies for exchange. I'm afraid you'll have to wait in the hotel for a bit, Shi Feng awkwardly said. I still need to contact the relevant people. All right. Hidden Soul readily agreed with Shi Feng's arrangement and went downstairs to wait. Meanwhile, Shi Feng hurriedly logged out of the game. God's Domain Academy, Advanced Training Hall. At this time, a tall young woman with silver hair and a frosty expression walked out of the Advanced Reaction Tester. Then, she looked at the robust man standing beside the tester and coldly said, "What did you say?" Lingling became a junior instructor's student. That instructor Shi used to be the Shadows Guild leader, but he was dismissed because of some matters. I don't know what he said to student Wu Lingling, but she adamantly insists on getting taught by him, Luo Tiancheng hastily replied, his body shuddering involuntarily when subjected to the silver-haired girl's cold gaze. However, he did not feel the slightest bit angry even when faced with the silver-haired girl's rude questioning. On the contrary, he behaved respectfully in front of her. It was especially true after he saw the result displayed on the Advanced Reaction Tester. S rank. Originally, the Basic Reaction Tester the Academy possessed would only have evaluations of Basic, Intermediate, Advanced, Excellent, and Perfect. However, after receiving a capital injection from various corporations, the Academy had introduced an Advanced Reaction Tester to the Advanced Training Hall. The tester was set to the standards of the various superpowers, and the tester similarly had 5 evaluation ranks: B rank, A rank, S rank, SS rank, and SSS rank. However, achieving a B rank evaluation in the Advanced Reaction Tester was even more difficult than achieving a perfect evaluation in the Basic Reaction Tester. The Advanced Reaction Tester's testing criteria were so stringent that even some refinement realm experts could only score an A rank evaluation, which was also Wu Zioxio's best score previously. Yet, after leaving the academy for training for a short period, Wu Xiaoxiao was now able to achieve an S-rank evaluation. It was simply astounding. She wants only him to teach her. Wu Xiaoxiao narrowed her eyes on Luo Tiancheng. Then, she grabbed her jacket from the nearby bench and coldly said, "I know what you're up to, Luo Tiancheng. Don't think that I can't see that you're trying to sow discord. Even so, that man should think twice if he thinks he can delude Lingling. I want to see what kind of abilities he has to dare boast about teaching Lingling." Chapter 52 Silver Witch. Early morning, God's Domain Academy, Sports Field. Although autumn had yet to arrive, the cooling wind persuaded many students to wear their sports jackets as they did their morning exercise. Some students chatted as they jogged around the field, while some did basic strength training. The lively atmosphere on the field was not at all inferior to that of the Academy's library. "You finished the 9 movement sets so quickly, Yu Heng," Qin Wuchen exclaimed as he looked at Xiao Yuheng, who was covered in sweat and gasping for air. "Amazing! You finished in just 5 minutes and 33 seconds. Didn't it take you 7 minutes and 52 seconds to finish the whole exercise yesterday?" Wu Lingling said, her mouth gaping slightly as she looked at the time displayed on her stopwatch. The 9 movement sets Shi Feng taught them might seem simple, but after combining it with his special breathing method, every movement executed placed a huge strain on their bodies. It even felt like their hearts would explode when they did the exercise. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that completing one movement set was akin to running a 1,000-meter lap. By the time they completed all 9 movement sets properly, they would collapse to the ground in exhaustion. If they hadn't been training their bodies since young, they couldn't have completed even one repetition of the exercise at all. Hee. After completing one repetition, Xiao Yuheng giggled as she looked at Qin Wuchen and Wu Xiao. Then, she cheekily said, "It's a secret." "That's mean of you, Yuheng. I even shared with you some of the basic techniques instructor Shi taught me before," Wu Lingling said, puffing up her cheeks and pretending to be angry. Although she had managed to shorten her time to 3 minutes and 40 seconds after receiving Shi Feng's catered instructions, she was still far from reaching Shi Feng's requirement of 3 minutes. If she kept on training at her current pace, it'd take her at least 3 to 5 days to achieve the target. "There's nothing I can do about it." Shrugging helplessly, Xiao Yuheng said, "Only I am suitable to use this method. It's impossible for other people. Only you can use it." After hearing Xiao Yuheng's answer, Wu Lingling understood that Xiao Yuheng wasn't trying to monopolize the secret. Instead, there should be some special reason involved. Feeling a little frustrated, she said, "In that case, I'll probably have to attend another one of Instructor Shi's lessons before I can hit the 3-minute mark." Upon hearing Wu Lingling's words, Qin Wuchen looked at her aggrievedly and said, "Compared to Yuheng, you're the more ruthless one, Wu Lingling. You wiped out all the points of so many instructors. Now, the rest of us have no choice but to buy points at a higher price from the seniors. Even then, I only managed to secure enough points to attend one lesson thus far." Previously, after learning that they needed to pay 6,000 points to attend Shi Feng's classes, they had tried to purchase points from the other instructors. Yet, when they tried to do so, every instructor they asked responded by saying they had already sold all of their spare points to Wu Lingling. That was more than 80,000 points they were talking about. Meanwhile, due to Wu Lingling's antics, the rest of the class had no choice but to buy points from the seniors. However, even after asking every senior they could find, they only managed to gather enough for each person to have 6,000 points. Hearing Qin Wuchen's words, Xiao Yuheng and the others nodded to express their agreement. Because of Wu Lingling's behavior, not only did they have a difficult time buying points, but the price of points had even inflated. "Serves you right. Who told you guys to move so slowly?" Wu Lingling said and stuck out her tongue, a hint of pride on her petite face. She had spent all of her savings to acquire around 80,000 points. With this many points, she shouldn't have to worry about not having enough points for the next 2 months. "By the way, about the message Instructor Shi sent us, he wants the top 5 among us to head to God's Domain's Candlelight Hotel for special training. What do you think Instructor Shi is planning on doing, Lingling?" Xiao Yuheng asked after catching her breath. There was a reason why their whole class had suddenly come to the field early in the morning to exercise. It wasn't because they were diligent. Instead, it was because they were testing the time it took them to complete one repetition of Shi Feng's exercise and find the top 5 among them as per Shi Feng's instructions. "I'm not sure," Wu Lingling said, shaking her head. "However, I suspect that it has something to do with the visit to the secret pavilion's branch headquarters. The Academy has just informed the instructors that the secret pavilion has decided to increase the number of students allowed to visit its branch headquarters. Instructor Shi must have received news of this as well, so he's probably conducting special training in preparation for that. After all, there is bound to be a spar between academies once we reach there. We're going to have to fight for our academy's reputation." "That's possible." Qin Wuchen nodded. "Thanks to the 4 heavenly kings, our academy always managed to rank within the top 8 of the provincial academy competition. Although the visit to the secret pavilion this time won't involve all academies in the province, I heard that there will still be more than 10 academies participating in the tour. It'd be disgraceful for our academy if we performed poorly in the spar. An ordinary province would have around 70 or 80 God's Domain academies, while larger ones would have over 100. For an academy in a third-tier city like Jinhai City, it was amazing that their academy managed to rank within the top 8 of the province in the past. After all, there was a significant difference between third-tier cities and first- and second-tier cities, since the stronger a guild was in God's Domain, the more likely they would have their headquarters set in high-tiered cities. The fact that their academy managed to rank within the top 8 despite this fact was proof of their strength. Naturally, they couldn't sully this reputation during their visit to the secret pavilion's branch headquarters. Subsequently, after everyone completed their test and decided on the top 5 of the class, the noisy sports field suddenly grew quiet. Confused by this situation, Wu Lingling and the others looked toward the sports field's entrance. At this time, the crowd originally gathered at the sports field's entrance had taken the initiative to separate and open up a path. Meanwhile, every student standing amidst the crowd wore expressions of respect and admiration on their faces. A short moment later, 2 people appeared on the opened path, one of them being Luo Tiancheng, a junior instructor of the academy, and the other being a silver-haired girl. What? That's Wu Xiaoxiao. Senior Wu Xiaoxiao is back already. Qin Wuchen and the others promptly grew excited when they saw the approaching silver-haired girl. Wu Xiaoxiao. She was the number 1 genius of Jinhai University's God's Domain Academy. At the same time, she was also the most talented student in the academy's history. Even though she was still a student, she had already become the vice commander of Dazzle Wave's main force. At the same time, she was also only 1 step away from entering the professional league's A-League, and she was known as the Silver Witch among God's Domain's new generation of experts. Because of Wu Xiaoxiao's presence, Jinhai University managed to rank within the top 5 out of all the province's God's Domain academies these past few years. Otherwise, even with the 4 Heavenly Kings' presence, Jinhai University probably couldn't even rank within the top 10. Why are you here, big sis? Wu Lingling obediently walked up to and greeted her sister. Shouldn't you be out training? The special training is already over. When Wu Xiaoxiao saw her cute little sister, her expression softened significantly. My initial plan was to come and see you after the results of my training are out, but do you think I can sit still after learning that you became the student of a junior instructor? Hearing Wu Xiaoxiao's words, Luo Tiancheng couldn't help but sneer. Now that Wu Xiaoxiao had made a personal appearance, it wouldn't matter what Shi Feng did. Wu Lingling would definitely be changing instructors now. You're overthinking things, big sis. Wu Lingling understood where her elder sister was coming from, so she explained, Instructor Shi's teaching standard is incredible. I'm confident he is in no way inferior to the academy's senior instructors. Let's hope that's the case, Wu Xiaoxiao said, paying no heed to her little sister's words. Can I meet with your instructor now? You want to meet with Instructor Shi? After thinking for a moment, Wu Lingling said, Instructor Shi isn't at school right now. If you want to meet him, you'll have to do so in the miniature ancient world. I just so happen to be in the miniature ancient world. I'll go online in a moment, so take me to him, Wu Xiaoxiao said, her tone allowing no objections. If I deem him inadequate, you must transfer under my instructor. All right, then. But you mustn't behave rashly, Wu Lingling said. She knew that she couldn't change her elder sister's mind with words alone, so she had no choice but to agree with her elder sister's demand for now. Wu Xiaoxiao nodded. Afterward, Wu Lingling and the other top 5 students of the class made their way back to the academy's dormitory and logged into God's Domain. Chapter 53 New Era. 100 Flow City, Candlelight Hotel. Although the sun had already set and the only illumination on the main street came from magic street lamps, the number of players flooding the main street did not decrease in the slightest. Instead, they gathered at the bars and restaurants lining the street to talk and laugh about their harvests and encounters. Did you hear? Many superpowers are now planning to send a large number of experts into the miniature ancient world because of the world passages opening. I did. According to a friend of mine, this miniature ancient world of ours is very special. It seems to be located at the boundary between two gods' domains, and players from both gods' domains can enter this miniature ancient world. The only reason why we haven't met any players from the other gods' domain is because we start in different zones. That's right, but the information I heard is a little more specific. You guys know about the Boundary River Regional Dungeon, right? I heard that so long as we reach level 120 and cross the Boundary River, we'll be able to reach the miniature ancient world's public training zone. There, players of both gods' domains won't be subjected to any penalties. We can even freely trade resources between the two gods' domains. This is definitely a good opportunity to get rich. Nonsense. This is more than just an opportunity to make money. It's a chance for independent players like us to make it big in God's domain. Unlike on the main continent, we get to have the same starting point as the various major powers. If we make good use of this opportunity and seize the public zone's resources and territory ahead of the major powers, we'll be set for life. That's right. I've already gambled all of my life savings into the miniature ancient world. So long as I can get into the public zone ahead of the major powers, I'll be able to secure a plot of land for sure. I bet the income I can generate won't be any lower than that of an imperial capital's golden land. I've decided. Other than eating and going to the toilet, I'm spending all of my time playing. Many of the players drinking and dining by the roadside talked about the current status quo in the miniature ancient world with great enthusiasm. Some of these players even wore fanatic looks on their faces. Sis, is what they say true? Wu Lingling, who had overheard the conversation of these players, asked as she looked at Wu Xiaoxiao with deep excitement and expectation in her eyes. The current god's domain could be described as a puddle of stagnant water. In fact, even the real world could be described as such. The various powers of God's domain had long since divided all of the resources available in both worlds among themselves. There were no longer any fights for supremacy like during God's domain's launch. However, if the miniature ancient world was really as these players said, God's domain would be ushering in a new and unprecedented era. New experts would emerge, and old legends would reappear. To members of the new generation like themselves, this was undoubtedly the best stage for them to shine. After hearing Wu Lingling's question, Qin Wuchen and the others perked up their ears. It was especially true for Lu Yuehang and Lu Yuxuan. The two had struggled greatly to enter the top 5 of the class, and their test results were only a few seconds faster than the students ranked behind them. Yet, now, not only did they manage to rank within the top 5 of their class, but they even got to walk together with Wu Xiaoxiao, the academy's biggest star. It was simply an unbelievable situation. Meanwhile, as the vice commander of a top-tier first-rate guild's main force, Wu Xiaoxiao naturally had access to more information than the average independent player and executives of small guilds. So, it stood to reason that she should know more about the miniature ancient world. What they say is true, Wu Xiaoxiao said, a hint of fiery passion appearing on her icy face. Currently, all of the new talents nurtured by the various powers are starting to grow restless because of the miniature ancient world. Here, they get to start from the same position as the older generation experts and have a fairer competition. Moreover, there are many more opportunities available in the miniature ancient world than on the main continent. This is also why I entered the miniature ancient world. Moreover, I can tell you now that the various superpowers are mass recruiting fresh talent right now. Some of them are even going as far as to nurture the talents of first-rate guilds partnered with them. So, you guys must cherish this opportunity. With the arrival of this new era, the various major powers placed unprecedented importance on rookie talents like themselves. Even the various superpowers were no exception. After all, the older generation experts would have most of their advantages wiped out when entering the miniature ancient world. Meanwhile, rookies like themselves had much greater growth potential. Their rate of improvement was also much faster compared to older generation experts, whose growths had already stagnated. This was also why Wu Xiaoxiao had met with her little sister in such a hurry. Luo Tiancheng thought that by stirring up trouble, he could make Wu Lingling become instructor key student. However, little did he know that Wu Xiaoxiao had never set her sights on instructor Qi at all. Instead, her goal was to turn her little sister into a talent nurtured by a superpower. Meanwhile, after hearing Wu Xiaoxiao's words, Qin Wuchen and the others promptly grew excited, their minds fantasizing about the possibility of clashing against the experts of legends. "This is the Candlelight Hotel, sis," Wu Lingling said as she pointed at the tattered, three-story hotel in front of her. Then, putting on a serious expression, she continued, "Let me make it clear first. You absolutely cannot mess around. I'll ignore you if you make Instructor Shi angry." Wu Lingling knew of her elder sister's personality very well. Her elder sister was a brutally straightforward person, and her words would almost always put others into an awkward situation. "You little girl!" Wu Xiaoxiao huffed grumpily when she heard her little sister's words. "It's only been a few days since you became his student, yet you're already prioritizing him over me. Do you promise or not?" Wu Lingling said, puffing up her cheeks. "Fine, I promise you," Wu Lingling said, shaking her head helplessly. "However, if I find that he is lacking, you must leave with me." "That won't be a problem." Wu Lingling nodded. "Are you that confident in him?" Wu Xiaoxiao was a little surprised to see her little sister agreeing to her demand so readily. She had been close to her little sister since young, so she knew that Wu Lingling had a stubborn personality. Once the girl had decided on something, it'd be nigh impossible to change her mind. However, so long as she promised to do something, she would always keep her promise. Originally, Wu Xiaoxiao had been thinking about how she could get her little sister to agree to her bet. Now, though, she didn't have to go through such troubles anymore. Hearing her elder sister's words, Wu Lingling puffed up her chest and confidently said, "Of course. Even Big Sis Xiu has nothing but praise for instructor Shi's teaching standard." "Xiu." Wu Xiaoxiao grew even more surprised after hearing Wu Lingling's words. She naturally knew of Chen Xiu's standards. If Shi Feng managed to gain Chen Xiu's acknowledgement, it meant that he indeed possessed some skill. However, Wu Xiaoxiao subsequently shook her head and said, "All right, then. Lead the way." Wu Xiaoxiao admitted that Chen Xiu was a talented individual. Chen Xiu's strength also went without saying. Before participating in a superpowers training, she would have needed a long time to beat Chen Xiu in a fight. However, that was no longer the case. Now, in a situation where they had similar basic attributes, levels, and tiers, Wu Xiaoxiao was confident she could beat Chen Xiu in 3 moves. Indeed, the superpowers of God's domain were just that powerful. The world of superpowers was something she could have never imagined before receiving priority training from a superpower. Afterward, Wu Lingling led Wu Xiaoxiao into the Candlelight Hotel. "Crap! Isn't the mana density here a little too crazy? Is this the benefit of staying in a hotel in the miniature ancient world?" Qin Wuchen and the others were shocked when they entered the hotel's lobby. Mana was the foundation of everything in God's domain, and a good mana environment could provide significant benefits to players. Meanwhile, the density of the mana inside the Candlelight Hotel was on a completely different level compared to the mana outside. After entering the Candlelight Hotel, they could feel their minds gaining unprecedented clarity. They even experienced the feeling of being omnipotence. Interesting. The mana density here is even comparable to some holy lands. Wu Xiaoxiao was shocked after carefully sensing the mana inside the hotel. In God's domain, holy lands were considered the best place for players to train themselves. However, the various superpowers had already monopolized the holy lands on the main continent, and even most first-rate guilds could only dream of visiting these places. While Wu Xiaoxiao and the others were dazed, a low but pleasant voice suddenly entered their ears. "You're finally here. Everyone promptly turned toward the source of the voice upon hearing it. Then, they found themselves looking at a cloaked woman with a magnificent body sitting on a couch in the lobby. Chapter 54. This person is a monster. Has this person always been here? Qin Wuchen couldn't help but ask the others through the team chat when he saw the cloaked woman sitting on the sofa. Players would have their 5 senses enhanced significantly after reaching Tier 3. Meanwhile, thanks to the combat experience he had racked up during his journey to Tier 3, he would always subconsciously spread out his senses wherever he went to familiarize himself with his surroundings. Yet, before the cloaked woman spoke up, he had failed to notice her presence even at the slightest. This situation was simply astonishing. She shouldn't be, right? Xiao Yuheng said hesitantly. No, she should have been there the entire time, Wu Xiao said, shaking her head. Then, in a wary tone, she continued, it's just that she has hidden her presence very well, and none of us managed to notice her before she spoke up. Upon hearing Wu Xiaoxiu's analysis, everyone immediately grew cautious of the cloaked woman. An expert capable of coming so close to them without their notice was without a doubt a huge threat to them. After all, there were many red players in God's domain, and a large portion of them were crazy players who piked solely for fun. It would be an absolute nightmare if such a player targeted them. When Wu Xiao saw the cloaked woman standing up and approaching them, she took the initiative to ask, "May I know what business you have with us, ma'am?" "Mr. Black Flame assigned me to teach you, Hidden Soul," the cloaked woman said. Then, she glanced at Wu Lingling's ID of whimsical wind and continued in a slightly surprised tone, "Your ID matches, but why are there 6 of you?" "Whatever. 6 is even better. You lot, come with me." "Is Instructor Black Flame not in the hotel?" Wu Lingling asked. Although Shi Feng had previously stated in his message that someone would be helping them train in God's domain, they didn't come here just to train this time. Instructor Black Flame. Hidden Soul was surprised once more. She didn't think that Shi Feng had taken in students under his wing. However, she quickly concluded that Shi Feng was most likely trying to develop his own troops so that Zero Wing could have an easier time managing its affairs in this God's domain. "Mr. Black Flame has already gone offline because he has something to do. I will be overseeing your training in God's domain in his stead." "Alright, enough talking and come with me to the combat room. I need to check your actual combat standards before I decide how I should train you." "He's leaving the teaching to others?" Wu Xiao inwardly sneered when she heard Hidden Soul's words. "It's a clever approach. Unfortunately, you used it in the wrong place." Originally, she thought that Shi Feng possessed some level of skill. However, she didn't think that Shi Feng would have caught wind of her arrival and hired an expert to teach in his place. The method Shi Feng employed could be regarded as perfect. Even if the instructor he hired taught poorly, it couldn't be considered his problem. After all, he wasn't doing the teaching personally. At most, he could give the excuse that he had failed to account for the expert he hired to be bad at teaching. On the other hand, if the hired instructor did well, not only could Shi Feng flaunt his expansive connections, but he could also show off his excellent insight, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Unfortunately, he had met her. Wu Xiao admitted that the cloaked woman before her was a capable expert, so much so that she had failed to notice the other party's presence immediately. However, she had fought against many such experts in the professional league before. If it were in the past, Wu Xiao would have had a headache dealing with such concealment experts. After all, as an elementalist, she'd fall into a huge disadvantage if she allowed an assassin to come close to her. She might even get killed quickly. However, after returning from Crimson Emperor's special training course, her combat standard had undergone a qualitative transformation. Now, she would have no problem dealing with experts like Hidden Soul. It was especially true in the miniature ancient world, where older generation experts and rookie experts had almost no difference in equipment standards. "Sis, Instructor Shi isn't here. Will you still be joining us?" Wu Lingling whispered to her elder sister. Of course. Since your instructor has hired such an expert, wouldn't it be a waste if I don't take a look at this scheme? Wu Xiaoxiao said nonchalantly. After saying so, Wu Xiaoxiao followed Hidden Soul to the hotel's underground combat room. Meanwhile, when Wu Lingling and the others saw this, they quickly followed the two. Unlike Wu Xiaoxiao, Wu Lingling and the others didn't have any problems with Shi Feng finding someone else to teach them. After all, even Southern Tiger, a captain of the Soul Fire Adventurer team, had tried to curry favor with Shi Feng. So, it stood to reason that the expert Shi Feng hired was someone strong. At the very least, Hidden Soul should be enough to teach freshmen like them. Candlelight Hotel, Underground Combat Room. The hotel's underground combat room was designed specifically for players. Although it didn't come equipped with as many functions as the combat rooms found in the battle arena, and its size was only a mere 50-yard radius, it was more than enough for players to practice their skills and spells in. Miss Instructor, how will you be testing our actual combat standards? Qin Wuchen curiously asked when he saw the relatively small combat room. This small combat room might be suitable for Tier 2 players to duel in, but it was somewhat lacking for a duel between Tier 3 players. After reaching Tier 3, experts would only need a few steps to cross a distance of 100 yards. A Tier 3 Great Mage could even cover the entire room with their AoE spells. So, for Tier 3 players, a combat room so small was only useful for target practice and nothing more. Just come at me together. Don't worry about anything and attack me with everything you've got, Hidden Soul calmly said as she swept a glance at Wu Xiaoxiao and the others. I won't use any weapons. It's your win so long as you can land a hit on me. I can give each of you an advanced class legacy if you win. I can even give you a peak class legacy if you want. Advanced or peak class legacies. The eyes of Qin Wuchen and the others instantly reddened a little when they heard Hidden Soul's words. Hidden classes were incredibly rare in God's domain, and even a basic hidden class was worth astronomical amounts of money. In the case of advanced legacies, even first-rate powers would go crazy for them. They weren't items that ordinary experts could get their hands on at all. Is what you say true? At this time, even Wu Xiaoxiao felt a little tempted. After all, she didn't even have an advanced legacy right now, let alone a peak legacy. Instead, she only possessed the basic hidden class illusionist. Even though the hidden class only allowed her to create illusions in battle, making it difficult for her opponents to keep track of her, it had still helped her greatly thus far. If she could obtain an advanced legacy, not only would it increase her strength significantly, but it could also help her massively when she tried to reach Tier 5 in the future. Don't believe me? Seeing the skeptical look on Wu Xiaoxiao's face, Hidden Soul took out a stone tablet that radiated a golden aura from her bag and said, "Take a look at it yourself." An advanced legacy. It's a real advanced legacy. Qin Wuchen's eyes bulged when he saw the stone tablet. I've seen one in a battle video before. In that case, I'll gladly take you up on your offer. Wu Xiaoxiao said, her expression turning serious when she saw the stone tablet. Immediately, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others took out their weapons. Then, without prior discussion, the six of them tacitly scattered across the room, fully intent on going all out for Hidden Soul's test. Meanwhile, as soon as everyone was in position, Wu Xiaoxiao waved her epic staff and cast two spells simultaneously. Tier 3 spell, Phantom Art. Tier 3 spell, Thunderbolt Lock. Immediately, not only did Wu Xiaoxiao split into more than 10 copies of herself, but every one of them held a chain made of lightning in their hands. It was impossible to distinguish her real body from the fakes at all. As for the others, they coordinated their movements with Wu Xiaoxiao, with Xiao Yuheng firing a series of arrows at Hidden Soul, Wu Lingling charging forward after using Wind Blade, Lu Wuxuan standing close to Wu Xiaoxiao with his shield raised and his body poised for action, Lu Yueshan casting a truth shield on Wu Xiaoxiao, and Qin Wuchen secretly entering stealth. Although the six of them had no prior experience working with each other before, there wasn't any conflict in their classes. On the contrary, their classes allowed them to make up for each other's flaws, doubling their effective combat power. I already told you to attack me with everything with your full strength. Why are you using a boss rating strategy to fight a player? Hidden Soul said in a slightly frustrated tone when she saw Wu Xiaoxiao and the others scattered around her. Have any of you fought with other players all these years? After letting out a sigh, Hidden Soul took a step forward. Subsequently, Hidden Soul's cloaked figure split into over a dozen indistinguishable copies, each copy charging in different directions. What kind of skill is this? Wu Lingling, who had charged to the forefront, was a little dumbfounded when she looked at the realistic doppelgangers in front of her. Typically, even if a Tier 3 assassin had a doppelganger skill, they could, at most, produce 3 to 5 realistic doppelgangers or a dozen or so false doppelgangers. There shouldn't be a Tier 3 doppelganger skill capable of producing over a dozen realistic doppelgangers. No, this isn't a skill. Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, her eyes filled with disbelief as she looked at Hidden Soul's doppelgangers. She's using the bronze footwork 1000 shadow steps. During her training at Crimson Emperor, the instructor overseeing the training had shown them a video of an expert executing 1000 shadow steps, so Wu Xiaoxiao could quickly discern the move Hidden Soul used. Meanwhile, the instructor at the time had specifically told them that should they encounter an expert capable of using the bronze combat technique under Tier 5, there was only one thing they should do. Run. This was because anyone capable of using 1000 shadow steps before reaching Tier 5 was essentially invincible among experts beneath the domain realm. Moreover, such an expert could be regarded as a one-man army, their effectiveness in PvP matching that of a 1,000-man team. Meanwhile, as soon as Wu Xiaoxiao finished speaking, a familiar voice suddenly entered her ears. Good insight, average talent, a good degree of mana control, and good reaction. Unfortunately, your combat standard is too low, and you didn't even use your berserk skill. You even used double speed casting in this confined space instead of leaving it as a backup plan. If I were to score you out of 100 points, I'd give you only 5 points. As soon as these words entered her ears, Wu Xiaoxiao suddenly felt her vision darkening. Meanwhile, just as Wu Xiaoxiao was about to collapse to the ground, she vaguely saw Wu Lingling and the others collapsing to the ground one after another. A monster. Chapter 55. Candlelight Hotel, Underground Training Room. Along with the appearance of several bundles of light, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others quickly reverted to their original state, shock and confusion coloring their faces as if they had experienced the same dream. One person. In a situation where everyone was at level 101 and geared in epic weapons and equipment at most, they didn't even know how they lost to Hidden Soul, let alone clashing against her. Meanwhile, all of this ended in an instant. What kind of monster is she? After snapping out of her daze, Wu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but look at Hidden Soul in shock. Even the training camp's head instructor doesn't have strength like this. Could she be a god-ranked expert? The various superpowers would typically have Tier 5 experts lead their training camps. Meanwhile, when participating in Crimson Emperor's training camp for top-tier geniuses, Wu Xiaoxiao had the fortune of meeting Blue Gown, a legendary individual from Crimson Emperor. The glorious Saint Blue Gown was once one of the top 3 geniuses in Crimson Emperor. After becoming a vice-guild leader in Crimson Emperor, she even became one of the 12 sacred knights in God's domain. Now that so many years had passed since Blue Gown had made these achievements, she had already become one of the top-ranking players in the A-League. Although she had never reached Tier 6, few under Tier 5 could be her match. Yet, despite Blue Gown being such a strong individual, Wu Xiaoxiao felt that Blue Gown couldn't even hold a candle to the mysterious cloaked woman before her right now. The two were standing on completely different levels. However, Wu Xiaoxiao quickly shook her head and denied the possibility of Hidden Soul being a god-ranked expert. No matter how she thought about it, there was no way a Tier 6 god-ranked expert would come to the miniature ancient world. Moreover, she didn't think that Shi Feng, the former guild leader of a second-rate guild, could be acquainted with a Tier 6 god-ranked expert. Even so, Wu Xiaoxiao still couldn't help but wonder how Shi Feng had managed to get acquainted with such a powerful expert. Have you six been sleeping in God's domain all these years? If I were to score your combat standards, I would give the best among you only 5 out of 100 points, while the rest of you won't receive more than 3 points. To make things worse, all 6 of you only have mediocre talent, Hidden Soul said, her eyes filled with frustration when she looked at Wu Xiaoxiao and the others. She had originally thought that Shi Feng would surprise her with amazing geniuses. Now, though, it would seem that she was thinking too much. Shi Feng had simply found a few trustworthy players to train in the miniature ancient world. Mediocre talent? 5 points. Qin Wuchen and the others couldn't help but look at Wu Xiaoxiao and Wu Lingling when they heard Hidden Soul's evaluation. They felt that Hidden Soul was joking with them. After all, Wu Lingling was currently regarded as the God's Domain Academy's #1 genius. Even the Academy's current 4 heavenly kings wouldn't be a match for Wu Lingling when they were still in their freshman year. As for Wu Xiaoxiao, not only was she a publicly acknowledged top-tier genius in God's domain, but she was also only half a step away from entering the professional league's A-League. It should be known that the A-League was a stage where many of God's domain's apex experts fought. Anyone capable of setting foot on this stage was a famous big shot in God's domain. Yet, despite Wu Xiaoxiao being such a talented expert, Hidden Soul had written her off as worthless. Instructor, my big sister definitely isn't. At this time, even Wu Lingling couldn't help but want to refute Hidden Soul's evaluation. She wasn't doing this for her own sake. Instead, she sincerely thought that her elder sister was a true genius. You don't need to defend me, Lingling. Wu Xiaoxiao reached out and interrupted Wu Lingling. What this instructor said is true. My talent is nothing special among the rookies the various superpowers are nurturing. In fact, my talent doesn't even reach the average standard. Wu Xiaoxiao was not the slightest bit surprised by Hidden Soul's evaluation. If it was before Wu Xiaoxiao had participated in Crimson Emperor's special training, she would have most likely tried to refute Hidden Soul's evaluation. However, after seeing the various superpowers and first-rate guilds' rookie talents, she came to understand one thing: her talent was truly mediocre. It was also because Wu Xiaoxiao came to understand this that she wanted to let Wu Lingling partake in Crimson Emperor's special training even more. This was because her little sister was much more talented than her. Despite having only enrolled in the God's Domain Academy recently at 17, Wu Lingling had already mastered Formless Steps, a top-tier basic combat technique. Her talent could be considered rare even among Crimson Emperor's young geniuses. If Wu Lingling could receive Crimson Emperor's priority training, Wu Xiaoxiao was confident that her little sister's future achievements would far surpass hers. Not bad. At least you're self-aware of your weaknesses, Hidden Soul said, a rare smile appearing on her face. Since you know you are mediocre, you need to work even harder if you want to become strong in the future. What you six need to do next is simple: fight me. You will pass when one of you manages to last more than a move against me. We will begin the real training once you pass. After saying so, Hidden Soul vanished from everyone's sights and mental perception once more. Not good. Spread out immediately. Wu Xiaoxiao promptly activated her berserk skill when she saw Hidden Soul disappearing. Then, she cast a magic barrier around herself. Tier 3 spell, Water Barrier. Unfortunately, even though Wu Xiaoxiao had reacted quickly, she saw a dilapidated short sword cutting at her before her water barrier could even finish taking shape. Then, her vision darkened, and her body collapsed to the ground. Moreover, Wu Xiaoxiao wasn't the only one who had collapsed. Wu Lingling and the others had also collapsed to the ground simultaneously. Your response was good this time. It's a pity that your reactions are still too slow, Hidden Soul said as she reappeared in front of everyone once more. Then, she shouted, again. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. As if entering a cycle of death, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others got slaughtered by Hidden Soul one time after another. The entire process could be summed up as Wu Xiaoxiao and the others trying to escape as soon as they got resurrected. However, even after exhausting all of their strategies, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others were still met with death. At best, they had managed to delay their deaths by 0.5 seconds. Meanwhile, along with their repeated deaths, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others also came to understand the horror of Hidden Soul. Rather than a monster, it would be more appropriate to call Hidden Soul a god of death. They would die as soon as she laid eyes on them. In the meantime, inside one of the villas, one of the Qingzhou Villa district, Shi Feng leisurely took out a bottle of A-rank nutrient fluid from the fridge and drank it. Then, he started doing the 9 movement sets he had taught to Wu Lingling and the others. Only, the breathing technique he used in conjunction with this exercise was completely different, and its complexity was many times greater. After completing 1 repetition, Shi Feng approached the fridge again, grabbed another bottle of A-rank nutrient fluid, and emptied the bottle's contents into his stomach. As expected, the recovery effect of A-rank nutrient fluids is lacking. I can only complete the body strengthening technique twice a day. Shi Feng revealed a bitter smile when he looked at his trembling fists. At this rate, it'd take me at least a year or 2 to get my physical fitness to the master standard. The exercise he taught to Wu Lingling and the others was a simplified version of his body strengthening technique. Meanwhile, the body strengthening technique was a training method he developed after combining the training methods he had gathered from other sub-worlds. The body strengthening technique allowed him to train the muscles throughout his entire body, and it did so by enriching his body cells with oxygen and accelerating his metabolism. This, in turn, helped with improving his physique from all aspects, and these improvements would continue until his physical fitness reached the standard of a Hung Lien master. Even in the greater God's domain, the body strengthening technique he created was extremely popular. The only problem with the technique was the harm it did to the user's body. Normally, one would need the help of S-rank nutrient fluids to perfectly restore the damage caused by overloading the body. If Shi Feng had enough S-rank nutrient fluids to help him recover, he would only need 1 month to bring his physical fitness to the level of a Hung Lien master. Just when Shi Feng was about to head to the God's Domain Academy for class after taking a short rest, the doorbell of his villa suddenly rang. Then, the house's smart housekeeper displayed the holographic image of a young man in front of Shi Feng. Meanwhile, this young man was none other than Gu Yiren, one of World Domination's internal experts and Shadow's current guild leader. Chapter 56 Secret Discovered. Why is he here? Shi Feng was a little surprised when he saw the white-clad young man in the holographic display. He hadn't really interacted with Gu Yiren before. Even before he reincarnated, he had only learned of the other party through reading the files Lan Hailong gave him. According to those files, Gu Yiren had passed World Domination's internal member trial when he was 17. There had been over 100,000 rookie players partaking in the trial back then. Among them, there were plenty of talented young men and women who could easily get into top-tier schools. Yet, out of the 30 rookies World Domination recruited, Gu Yiren managed to come in 4th place. After joining World Domination, Gu Yiren's growth accelerated even further. By 20, he had already become a vice commander in World Domination's main force. It should be known that even the minimum requirement to become a vice commander of one of World Domination's frontline teams was to be a Tier 4 refinement realm expert. The requirement to become a vice commander in World Domination's main force was even higher. If Gu Yiren were to join a first-rate guild, he would instantly be made into an elder-level executive or possibly even a vice-guild leader. Currently, due to Gu Yiren being Shadow's guild leader, many people have ignored the fact that he was only 21 years old this year. At that age, he would only be a 4th-year student in university. However, compared to Wu Xiaoxiao, the God's Domain Academy's current star, Gu Yiren was definitely superior. Honestly, with Gu Yiren's standards, having him serve as a second-rate guild's guild leader was somewhat of an overkill. Can we have a talk, Instructor Shi? Gu Yiren's holographic image asked. Sure, come in, Shi Feng said. Then, he had the smart housekeeper open the front door. When Gu Yiren entered the first floor living room, Shi Feng noticed that the other party didn't come alone. Instead, there was a beautiful girl dressed like a secretary standing behind Gu Yiren. It seems I've underestimated the importance shadow holds in world domination's eyes. To think it would send two top-tier talents to oversee a mere second-rate guild, Shi Feng murmured to himself, feeling a little surprised when he saw the girl dressed like a secretary. Even though the girl looked like she was only 20 years old, her physique was already at the half-step Honglian master standard. Even in the entire Jinhai University's God's Domain Academy, nobody was capable of rivaling this girl in terms of physique. Moreover, judging by the way she carried herself and the level of alertness she showed, the girl was probably at the flowing water realm already. A 20-year-old flowing water realm expert was an existence only the various superpowers could reliably produce. Such an existence wasn't something the various first-rate powers of God's domain could hope to produce. Meanwhile, upon hearing Shi Feng's soft mutterings, the girl, Tao Yue, couldn't help but look at Shi Feng in surprise and caution. Ever since Tao Yue arrived in Jinhai City, she had disguised herself as Gu Yiren's secretary, and not even Lan Hailong, Shadow's President 1, knew of her actual identity. In everyone's eyes, she was nothing but an ordinary secretary. Nobody in the city had yet to realize that she, too, was one of World Domination's top-tier geniuses. Yet, now, less than 3 seconds after she stepped into this living room, Shi Feng, the former guild leader of Shadow, had effortlessly seen through her disguise. This situation was inconceivable no matter how she thought about it. Ha ha ha. You truly do have great eyes, Instructor Shi. No wonder why a genius like Wu Lingling insists on having you as her instructor. Gu Yiren openly acknowledged Shi Feng's words. As you've surmised, this person beside me is Tao Yue. She is my junior sister and similarly a vice commander of World Domination's main force. Unfazed by this revelation, Shi Feng got straight to the point and asked, So, what business do you have with me? Join us. Or, more specifically, return to Shadow. I will give you the position of Vice Guild Leader and let you manage all of Shadow's affairs. What do you think? Gu Yiren asked with a smile. Of course, I will handle the explanation on Lan Hailong's side. He shouldn't have any qualms with my decision. That easily. Shi Feng smiled. Don't I need to do something? Of course, there is a price. However, it is a simple price to pay for you, Gu Yiren said, chuckling. Then, he earnestly said, so long as you hand over the complete version of your training method, the exercise you taught to Wu Lingling and the others, you can continue being Shadow's guild leader. Yue and I won't remain in Shadow forever, so it is only a matter of time before you get the position back. We can even help you secure Shadow if you want. At that time, Lan Hailong will only be president in name. You will have the final say in Shadow. When Gu Yiren spoke up to this point, Tao Yue's eyes briefly sparkled. Before investigating Wu Lingling, they assumed that Wu Lingling was a rare talent in Jinhai City. They had even made plans to recruit Wu Lingling into World Domination. However, after investigating deeper into Wu Lingling, they discovered that the girl wasn't as excellent as they thought. Specifically, Wu Lingling didn't used to be as excellent as they thought. However, everything changed on the day Wu Lingling took her enrollment test. Wu Lingling, who should have only received an A-rank evaluation for her enrollment test originally, had unexpectedly received an S-rank evaluation. It might be fine if Wu Lingling was the only person to have made such a sudden improvement. However, after they looked deeper into the matter, they discovered something shocking. Every student who participated in Shi Feng's brief training session had their evaluations increased by 1 rank. Indeed, in only a few short hours, every one of Shi Feng's students had raised their evaluations by 1 rank. In the eyes of ordinary powers, they would probably only find this situation to be amazing and nothing more. However, it was a completely different story for the various superpowers. The feat of helping someone make visible improvements to their combat standards in a matter of a few hours was something even the various superpowers could not accomplish. It didn't matter even if the person in question had only gone from the trial tower's 5th floor early stage to the 5th floor middle stage. At most, the various superpowers could help bona fide top-tier geniuses achieve such rapid improvement. If a person only had average talent, even the best training methods the various superpowers could offer couldn't help this person make visible improvements in only a few hours. Moreover, Wu Lingling's subsequent performances were even more astonishing. Not only did she single-handedly win the freshman competition, but her combat standard had even reached the 5th floor's late stage already at the time of the competition. It should be known that the freshman competition was held the day after the enrollment test. Meanwhile, the increase in the difficulty of the trial tower's challenges grew greater and greater the higher one climbed. So, the amount of time one needed to pass each stage would also increase exponentially. Wu Lingling's rate of improvement simply defied common sense. Compared to Wu Lingling, the various superpowers' top-tier geniuses were nothing but a joke. Afterward, they had secretly hired some of the academy's freshmen to challenge Qin Wuchen, Xiao Yuheng, and the other students under Shi Feng to a spar. Meanwhile, they found that every one of Shi Feng's students had displayed far superior combat standards than what they previously displayed in their enrollment test. Qin Wuchen, in particular, had already reached the 5th floor middle stage standard. It should be known that Qin Wuchen had only scored an A-rank evaluation in his enrollment test. Yet, he had already caught up with Gu Tong, who was publicly recognized as a genius. Not to mention, even Gu Tong had only reached the 5th floor's middle stage recently. After racking their heads over this situation, the only explanation Gu Yiren and Tao Yue could come up with for this astonishing situation was the exercise Shi Feng had taught to Qin Wuchen and the others. Meanwhile, after coming to this conclusion, the two of them had secretly tried to mimic the exercise. However, even after mimicking the 9 movement sets perfectly, they failed to experience any benefits from the exercise. This meant that there must be a secret to this exercise that they weren't aware of and that blindly copying the movements was useless. In that case, if they wished to obtain the complete version of the exercise, they would have to get it from Shi Feng's hands. However, after hearing Gu Yiren's words, Shi Feng simply smiled and asked, "What if I refuse?" Chapter 57 The Sky is Falling. Not interested, are you? Seemingly having expected Shi Feng's answer, Gu Yiren smiled and said, "I'm sure you have many partners you can trade with, Instructor Shi, so you don't necessarily have to trade with us. However, I can assure you that we are your best option. It is especially true around this time." "I know what you mean." Nonchalantly, Shi Feng said, "Since you managed to find out about this matter, other people can naturally do so as well. However, those people wouldn't necessarily be as amiable as you, right? I'm glad that you are an understanding person, Instructor Shi." Without hiding anything, Gu Yiren said, "I'll get straight to the point, then. The training method you have in your possession is extraordinary, Instructor Shi. Once news of it gets out, even Soulfire won't dare to get involved with it, let alone Jinhai University. Meanwhile, once the various superpowers start to take action, what you'll be faced with isn't a transaction offer but a one-sided offering instead. If handled poorly, you might even get struck down into the abyss. However, if you trade with us now, we will help you fend off all of these problems. You can even return to your previous guild leader position. Moreover, with our support, Shadow will also become your possession. This is a win-win solution for both of us." At this point, Gu Yiren was adamant in obtaining the complete version of Shi Feng's exercise. Even though this exercise could only help players reach the refinement realm according to their understanding, it was still plenty astonishing to the various superpowers. After all, nurturing a player to the refinement realm wasn't an easy task as factors such as luck and talent played an important role. Otherwise, the various superpowers would have long since been flooded with refinement realm experts. Meanwhile, if he could acquire this refinement exercise, both he and Tao Yue would instantly become high-level executives in world domination and acquire resources unimaginable to them before. They might even gain access to the legendary upper zone. Thank you for your concern, Guild Leader Gu, but I am still uninterested in your offer, Shi Feng said, shaking his head. If you really wish to trade, it will cost you 500 bottles of S-rank nutrient fluid. 500? Are you insane? Tao Yue subconsciously raised her voice when she heard Shi Feng's demand. It was impossible to find S-rank nutrient fluids on the open market. Although they were privately traded for 1 million credits per bottle, even the various superpowers could only acquire a limited amount from the various major corporations. Meanwhile, this amount wasn't even enough to satisfy the various superpowers' internal needs. Even though Shi and Gu Yiren were regarded as top-tier talents in world domination, they could only exchange for 5 bottles per year or 10 bottles in total. Yet, Shi Feng was asking for 500 bottles. This was daylight robbery. If you don't have that many, there's nothing I can do to help you, Shi Feng said, shrugging. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He wasn't against selling his exercise if he could get a sufficient amount of S-rank nutrient fluids in exchange. After all this exercise did was lower the bar for players to reach the refinement realm. It didn't mean that anyone who practiced it could reach the refinement realm. Tao Yue grew even more furious after hearing Shi Feng's response. She was a top-tier genius in world domination. Never had she suffered such humiliation before. Since you aren't interested in trading, we will be taking our leave first, Instructor Shi. But if you change your mind in the future, feel free to contact me at any time, Gu Yiren said. Unlike Tao Yue, he did not get angry over Shi Feng's response. On the contrary, he politely bid goodbye to Shi Feng and dragged Tao Yue out of the villa with him. Meanwhile, after leaving the villa, Tao Yue glared at Gu Yiren in dissatisfaction and asked, "Why did you stop me just now, senior brother? I was only trying to teach him a lesson. Otherwise, he'll really think that he's amazing and that he can trade with us as equals." Teach him a lesson? Gu Yiren rolled his eyes at Tao Yue. Then, he looked back at the villa with a heavy expression and said, "If I didn't stop you just now, you would have most likely gotten into big trouble by now. Is he that strong?" Tao Yue asked skeptically as she looked at the fearful expression on Gu Yiren's face. She had conducted a thorough investigation into Shi Feng's history, so she knew he was merely an ordinary person. He did not have any background or powerful experts supporting him. His performance was also extraordinarily mediocre throughout the 10 years he spent in God's domain. She had even looked into Shi Feng's friends and knew that all of them were ordinary people. Moreover, because Shi Feng had failed to receive systematic training when he was young, even after receiving training resources from Shadow later down the line, his physical fitness was only on the level of first-rate athletes. She would need only one punch to topple such a person. "You know that I've always had a sharp intuition," Gu Yiren said. "It is precisely because of my sharp intuition that teacher chose to take me under his wing. Teacher says that I am extremely gifted when it comes to mental strength. Teacher has even taught me a few meditation techniques that have helped develop my mental strength greatly." Tao Yue silently nodded to Gu Yiren's words. She was aware that Gu Yiren possessed a sharp intuition. Because of his sharp intuition, Gu Yiren had managed to come in 4th place during the rookie test. In comparison, she only managed to come in 10th. My perception of experts is also different from other people. In my eyes, some experts are like household cats, while some are like hungry wolves and lions. However, when I looked at Shi Feng before, I couldn't sense anything from him. He felt no different than a tree in my perception. If I hadn't seen him talking, I would have even suspected that he wasn't alive. But the moment you tried to take action, Gu Yiren paused for a moment when he spoke up to this point. Then, the fear on his face intensified as he continued in a slightly trembling voice, "Do you know what I felt?" "What? A tiger?" Or is it a monster brandishing its claws? Tao Yue grew curious when she saw Gu Yiren's fear intensifying. She knew that Gu Yiren could express the threat he perceived from his opponents in various forms. Meanwhile, if his opponent's threat level manifested in the form of household pets such as cats and dogs, it meant that his opponent was merely an ordinary refinement realm expert or a half-step master in the real world, individuals incapable of posing any significant threat to him. However, if the opponent's threat level manifested as a wolf, it was almost certain that the opponent was a martial arts master in the real world. In the case of lions and tigers, these manifestations were reserved for top-tier martial arts masters. I didn't perceive any animal or monster, Gu Yiren said, shaking his head. That proves he isn't anything, then, Tao Yue said, feeling a little speechless. Ignoring Tao Yue's words, Gu Yiren turned around and looked at his junior sister. Then, he took a deep breath and whispered, "Instead, what I perceived was the sky falling." Chapter 58. You brought this onto yourself. The sky fell. Tao Yue scratched her head, failing to understand Gu Yiren's point. This is also my first time coming across such a situation, Gu Yiren said with a bitter smile. All I know is that the moment you tried to take action, I got the feeling that the sky was falling, and an indescribable sense of death filled the living room. Are you sure nothing's wrong with your mind, senior brother? Tao Yue asked when she saw Gu Yiren's abnormal behavior. Shi Feng was nothing more than a Tier 3 player during his peak. Even if he used to be Shadow's guild leader, Shadow was only a second-rate guild. In the eyes of the various superpowers, Shi Feng was nothing more than an insignificant ant. Yet, now, Gu Yiren was describing Shi Feng as if he was someone amazing. Those unaware of Gu Yiren's abilities might even think that he had gone crazy. Anyway, we should be more careful of Shi Feng, Gu Yiren said. Don't forget that he managed to see through your strength with just a glance. He isn't as simple as he looks. However, I have already told this matter to teacher, and teacher has said that he will make a trip here soon. It wouldn't be late for us to teach Shi Feng a lesson at that time. Teacher is coming here in person. Tao Yue's eyes lit up when she heard Gu Yiren's words. That's wonderful. We'll see how Shi Feng continues behaving arrogantly at that time. Their teacher was a legendary individual in World Domination. If their teacher visited Jinhai City, Shi Feng would have to hand over the complete version of the refinement realm exercise even if he didn't want to. Meanwhile, inside Shi Feng's villa, after Gu Yiren and Tao Yue left, Shi Feng quietly stood by the window and took an extra look at Gu Yiren. It seems I have underestimated the superpowers of this world. I didn't think he would notice my intentions of attacking just now. Shi Feng's face took on a slightly serious look as he watched Gu Yiren and Tao Yue driving away in their car. I'll have to raise my physical fitness as quickly as possible. On an individual level, Shi Feng did not see Gu Yiren and Tao Yue as a threat at all. Even if his body was in poor shape right now, he could still beat the two of them effortlessly. After all, he had been a neutralizing grandmaster and a mental strength grandmaster during his previous life. Few people could match him even in the upper zone. While his current physique might be terrible, the skills he honed during his previous life remained. He would have no problems defeating even internal force masters in his current state. Not to mention, neither Gu Yiren nor Tao Yue was an internal force master. However, Gu Yiren's arrival had also served as a wake-up call for Shi Feng. He would probably have a tough time going up against the various superpowers' old monsters. After all, the difference in physical fitness between them was far too massive. It wasn't a gap that could be easily bridged using techniques alone. Hence, he needed to improve his physical fitness as quickly as possible. At the very least, he needed to reach the half-step master standard. If he could accomplish that, he would be able to deal with most problems he would encounter. Thinking up to this point, Shi Feng reluctantly put on his jacket and drove his car to Jinhai University. He had to admit that being a teacher was truly a tedious job. However, this was the most reliable way Shi Feng could think of to acquire S-rank nutrient fluids. It was true that he had many things he could use to trade with the various superpowers, with many of these things being even better than the exercise Gu Yiren and Tao Yue sought. However, all transactions were established based on equality. He would simply be seeking an early death if he tried to trade with the various superpowers without having sufficient strength. Jinhai University, God's Domain Academy, Teaching Block Number 3. Although classes had only started officially yesterday, many of the Academy's well-known instructors were busy conducting special training with their apprentices outside of the Academy's campus, so they didn't have time to hold classes at all. Even so, students still flooded the teaching block. When Shi Feng entered teaching block number 3, he found himself looking at many instructors fighting over the available classes in the lobby. What's going on? Teaching block number 3 had over 200 classrooms. Yet, now, only a few were left. Moreover, all of the remaining classrooms were super large classrooms. Not even one small classroom remained available right now. The teaching block's super large classrooms were unique compared to the other classrooms available. Apart from being able to accommodate 400 people, the super large classrooms also had state-of-the-art technology that allowed occupants to connect their God's Domain IDs and conduct virtual battles and guidance inside the classroom. Only, apart from senior instructors, other instructors wouldn't usually touch these classrooms. The reason for this was simple: these super large classrooms were simply too expensive to rent. An instructor would have to fork out 30,000 points to hold one lecture in a super large classroom. It was simply impossible for junior and intermediate instructors to recuperate such a hefty cost. While Shi Feng was feeling surprised, a tall and robust man approached him. Meanwhile, this man was none other than Luo Tiancheng. "Why, if it isn't Instructor Shi!" Luo Tiancheng exclaimed with a smile as he looked at Shi Feng. "What's wrong? Can't find a classroom? Well, I guess that's normal after the recent announcement." With the opportunity to visit the secret pavilion's branch headquarters presented to them, anyone would at least try to compete for it. If you didn't know, the secret pavilion has recently announced that it is letting more students and instructors visit its branch headquarters. So, apart from the senior instructors, our academy is also letting 5 other instructors to take part in the tour. Meanwhile, these 5 instructor slots would be granted to the top 5 performing instructors today. Moreover, junior instructors can even get promoted to intermediate instructors depending on their performances. Of course, while you might be student Wu Lingling's instructor, you won't receive any special treatment, Instructor Shi. If you want to participate in the tour, you'll have to compete for these top 5 positions just like everyone else. After all, a student's excellence and a teacher's excellence shouldn't be confused with each other. Only through holding classes can an instructor adequately display their strength. Otherwise, instructors who only have luck to rely on would only bring shame to our Jinhai University if they visited the secret pavilion's branch headquarters. Don't you think so, Instructor Shi? That's right. Shi Feng nodded. Then, he looked at Luo Tiancheng with conviction in his eyes, saying, "What you say is very much correct. Such a method of selection will allow the academy to best demonstrate the standard of its instructors. I didn't think our academy would be so generous to its instructors." Originally, Shi Feng had been pondering how he could quickly get promoted to an intermediate instructor. Now, he wouldn't have to worry about this problem anymore. After saying so, Shi Feng promptly chose to rent a super large classroom via the classroom reservation board in the lobby. Then, he went upstairs and made his way to the classroom he rented. A super large classroom. Is he nuts? Luo Tiancheng was momentarily dumbfounded when he saw that Shi Feng had rented a super large classroom. However, a moment later, he turned to look at Shi Feng's departing figure and sneered, thinking, "You brought this onto yourself. Let's see how you'll enter the top 5 after this crazy stunt." Had Shi Feng chosen to borrow a classroom from the other instructors, he might have had a chance to compete for the top 5 instructor spots. After all, he had students such as Wu Lingling, who didn't care about spending large amounts of points. If he managed to rope in 1 or 2 more idiots into his exorbitant class, it was entirely possible for him to rank among the top 5. However, by choosing a super-large classroom, Shi Feng had put himself at a deficit of 30,000 points right off the bat. In this situation, it'd be a miracle if he could even earn enough points to cover his expenses, let alone compete for the top 5 instructor slots. Not to mention, it wasn't even certain if Wu Linglin would continue attending Shi Feng's classes. After all, Wu Xiaoxiao had no intentions of letting Shi Feng remain as Wu Lingling's instructor. While Luo Tiancheng was secretly snickering and getting ready to head to his classroom, a loud commotion suddenly occurred at the teaching block's entrance. Subsequently, a silver-haired girl and a petite-looking girl entered the building. Meanwhile, these 2 girls were none other than Wu Xiaoxiao and Wu Lingling. Chapter 59. Watching him rise, watching him entertain important guests, watching him. Sure enough, this is going to be interesting. Before seeing Wu Xiaoxiao, Luo Tiancheng still felt that Shi Feng could recoup his losses at the very least by relying on Wu Lingling and a few more of his students. However, now that Wu Xiaoxiao was here, Shi Feng shouldn't even think of earning back the points he put into renting the super-large classroom. The reason why Luo Tiancheng thought so was because of a shocking piece of news he received not long ago. Apparently, while Wu Xiaoxiao was out participating in the Super Guild Crimson Emperor's special training, she showed relatively good talent and performance, so she managed to get herself selected for Crimson Emperor's priority training list. This news had excited Dazzle Wave's executives greatly. After all, Crimson Emperor would choose only 10 players from its affiliated powers to offer priority training. Meanwhile, not only did Crimson Emperor have over 100 affiliated powers, but each affiliated power had even sent 2 or 3 representatives to participate in its training camp. Thus, the difficulty of ranking within the top 10 out of these several hundred people was enormous. Now that Wu Xiaoxiao was slated to receive the treatment of Crimson Emperor's top-tier internal talents, if no mishaps occurred, she would become one of Dazzle Wave's successors in the future. Her current status in Dazzle Wave and God's Domain was completely different from before. With her current status and identity, Wu Xiaoxiao would have no trouble providing more resources for her little sister Wu Lingling. She could even recommend Wu Lingling to Crimson Emperor, allowing Wu Lingling to participate in Crimson Emperor's next training camp and potentially get selected for priority training. Currently, the various powers of God's Domain were in urgent need of experts because of the miniature ancient world, and they were doing everything they could to fulfill this shortage. Thus, Crimson Emperor's next training camp might arrive much earlier than expected. It might even be in the works already. After all, a superpower would always act while looking a few steps ahead. Unlike the average power in God's Domain, the various superpowers didn't have to worry much about resources when planning for the future. Shortly after Wu Xiaoxiao and Wu Lingling entered the teaching block, another commotion occurred at the entrance as a refined-looking middle-aged man wearing black-framed glasses walked into the building along with a young man and a young woman. Crap! What kind of day is today? Senior Wu Xiaoxiao's arrival just now was already plenty surprising. I never thought that 2 of the Academy's 4 heavenly kings would also come here. Is there some kind of big shot teaching here today? Why is Instructor Qi here as well? Don't senior instructors get to attend the tour without having to compete? Upon seeing this trio, every student and instructor nearby couldn't help but be surprised. This was because the middle-aged man was none other than the Academy's famous senior instructor Qi, while the young man behind him was Liang Feng, and the young woman was Chen Ziyu. Despite looking thin and sickly, Liang Feng was the youngest out of the Academy's 4 heavenly kings, and he was currently only a second-year student. As for Chen Ziyu, she, too, was one of the 4 heavenly kings. Meanwhile, both of them were instructor Qi students. It was also because of these 2 students that Instructor Qi managed to hold an absolute position in the academy and stand toe-to-toe with Wu Xiaoxiao's instructor. What brings you here today, Instructor Qi? Didn't you plan to provide special training for Gu Tong and the others before the secret pavilion tour? Luo Tiancheng asked in confusion after approaching Instructor Qi. The academy placed significant importance on the secret pavilion tour this time, so much so that it had promised generous rewards to the 4 senior instructors. After all, the tour this time would determine the standings of Jinhai University's God's Domain Academy among the other academies in the province. Thus, all 4 senior instructors were privately training their respective apprentices in preparation for the tour. Ziyu says that Instructor Shi's classes are amazing, Instructor Qi said as she gave a grumpy look at Chen Ziyu. I'm skeptical of her claims, so I came here to take a look for myself. In response, Chen Ziyu simply made an embarrassed smile and didn't offer any explanations. You are thinking too highly of that Shi Feng, Instructor Qi. How can his class possibly be better than yours? Luo Tiancheng was shocked when he heard Instructor Qi words. Moreover, Shi Feng is charging 10,000 points for one class. That's simply daylight robbery. Instructor Qi held a prestigious position in the academy. The average instructor in the academy would even try to attend Instructor Qi classes. This was because Instructor Qi used to be a core member of the top adventurer team Heaven's Wind. However, after Heaven's Wind's disbandment, Instructor Qi stopped being active in God's domain and focused on teaching at Jinhai University instead. One shouldn't underestimate Instructor Qi simply because he had a refined and scholarly appearance. Although Instructor Qi could only exhibit combat standards at the refinement realm when manipulating his in-game character due to his deteriorated mental state, he had reached the peak of the flowing water realm during his prime. It was even rumored that he was only one step away from reaching the void realm. For this reason, Instructor Qi held connections with many major powers and even superpowers. I know that, which is why I came prepared, Instructor Qi said, nodding. This Luo Tiancheng was at a loss for words. Then, he turned to look at Liang Feng in the hopes of getting the boy to put some sense into Instructor Qi. Currently, every additional person that attended Shi Feng's class would increase Shi Feng's chances of attending the secret pavilion tour, so Luo Tiancheng couldn't allow Instructor Qi group of 3 to attend Shi Feng's class. Meanwhile, it was well known that Liang Feng had a conflicting relationship with Chen Ziyu. If Chen Ziyu was adamant in siding with Shi Feng, Liang Feng's reaction would naturally oppose her. Don't worry, Instructor Luo. I also brought enough points with me, Liang Feng said, completely misunderstanding Luo Tiancheng's signal. Luo Tiancheng was flabbergasted when he heard Liang Feng's words. Was that what he meant? Or was this one of the academy's so-called geniuses? Amidst Luo Tiancheng's shock, Wu Xiaoxiao and Wu Lingling suddenly walked over to the group. Hello, Instructor Qi. Despite her cold nature, Wu Xiaoxiao had taken the initiative to greet Instructor Qi. May I know if I can trouble you with something? Wu Xiaoxiao's sudden greeting had surprised Luo Tiancheng and the surrounding people. Wu Xiaoxiao was known for being a prideful lone wolf in the academy. Other than her instructor, she would never take the initiative to greet anyone in the academy. Yet, now, she had taken the initiative to greet Instructor Qi. Is she trying to band together with Instructor Qi to pressure Shi Feng? When Luo Tiancheng thought about Wu Lingling's present situation, he felt that the likelihood of that happening was high. Currently, Wu Lingling behaved as if she were possessed as she adamantly insisted on remaining as Shi Feng's apprentice. She refused to change her mind no matter what others said to her. However, if the Academy's brightest star and one of the Academy's prestigious senior instructors joined hands to exert pressure on Shi Feng would have no choice but to abandon Wu Lingling lest he wanted to get isolated in the Academy. Thinking up to this point, Luo Tiancheng grew a lot more spirited. How can I possibly refuse a request from student Wu Xiaoxiao? Instructor Qi was similarly surprised to see Wu Xiaoxiao greet him. Then, he happily said, ask away. Can I buy some points from you, instructor? Wu Xiaoxiao said in slight embarrassment. I spent most of my points at the advanced training hall previously, and I don't even have 10,000 points on me right now. Yet, my little sister refuses to lend me any points no matter what. May I know if you can sell me a couple 100,000 points? Chapter 60. As soon as Wu Xiaoxiao finished speaking, Luo Tiancheng, who was about to laugh at Shi Feng's predicament, was promptly dumbfounded. Luo Tiancheng could understand Instructor Qi and Liang Feng holding an interest in Shi Feng's class. After all, they had Chen Zihu fanning the flames from the side. However, it made zero sense why someone as prideful as Wu Xiaoxiao would attend Shi Feng's class. At this moment, Luo Tiancheng couldn't help but think that Wu Xiaoxiao was playing a joke on him. Or was it this world that was joking with him? In Luo Tiancheng's opinion, Shi Feng would already be fortunate if Wu Xiaoxiao didn't give him a beating. Yet, not only was Wu Xiaoxiao going out of her way to buy points to attend Shi Feng's lesson right now, but she was even buying points in the hundreds of thousands. Evidently, she didn't plan to stop at just one lecture. This was Shi Feng they were talking about. Even at his peak, Shi Feng was merely a Tier 3 expert who hadn't even reached the refinement realm. It was only due to the early advantage he had accumulated during the early stages of God's domain that he managed to become Shadow's guild leader. Although Luo Tiancheng was slightly inferior to Shi Feng when it came to individual strength, he was confident he surpassed Shi Feng when it came to teaching standards. So, what qualifications did Shi Feng have to attract the Academy's top-tier talents and a senior instructor to attend his class? However, what Luo Tiancheng didn't know was that Wu Xiaoxiao was only behaving this way because of hidden soul. She naturally had to meet the person capable of recruiting the help of such a monster. If Shi Feng was indeed as amazing as her little sister described, she planned to recommend him to Crimson Emperor. After all, Crimson Emperor was in urgent need of experts right now. A couple 100,000? I don't have that many points on me right now, Instructor Qi said, shaking his head. Then, he turned to look at Chen Zihu, who wore a delighted look on her face, and awkwardly said, I did have a lot of points before, but I sold most of them to Zihu already. I only have a little more than 60,000 points right now, but I still need to take a look at Instructor Shi's class, so I can only sell you 50,000 points. Ever since Chen Zihu had attended Shi Feng's first lecture, she had become a harvesting machine for Academy points. She had even praised Shi Feng to the sky. If it wasn't for the fact that Chen Zihu had indeed reached the refinement realm after attending Shi Feng's class, Instructor Qi wouldn't have believed her claims at all. It should be known that Chen Zihu had been stuck on the cusp of the refinement realm for a long time already. Even though her techniques were already on the level of refinement realm experts, she couldn't reach the refinement realm no matter what. Yet, Shi Feng had resolved Chen Zihu's problem after just one lesson. Even as an instructor, Instructor Qi couldn't help but find this unbelievable. Okay. I'll take all of them. Wu Xiaoxiao transferred the credits for the 50,000 points to Instructor Qi without hesitation, giving no time for Instructor Qi to even think or hesitate. Meanwhile, Luo Tiancheng couldn't help but be dumbfounded by Wu Xiaoxiao's actions. Was Shi Feng's class really so magical that Wu Xiaoxiao saw the need to seek points so desperately? Thank you, Instructor Qi. We'll be taking our leave now, Wu Xiaoxiao said after seeing the 50,000 points being credited to her account. Then, she promptly left for Shi Feng's classroom with Wu Lingling. Seeing this, Chen Zihu also hurriedly urged, let's hurry over there as well, Instructor. Instructor Shi's class will be starting soon. After looking at the time and seeing that Shi Feng's class was indeed starting soon, Instructor Qi quickly concluded his conversation with Luo Tiancheng and went upstairs with Chen Zihu and Liang Feng. This world must have gone crazy. It must have. Luo Tiancheng was in complete and utter disbelief right now. Even though Shi Feng was no longer Shadow's guild leader, even though Shi Feng had already been knocked down from his lofty position, even though Shi Feng had already been reduced to nothing but a loser for some inexplicable reason, Shi Feng was shining even brighter than when he was Shadow's guild leader. It should be known that Wu Xiaoxiao and Instructor Qi were individuals that even Lan Hailong, the president of Lan Hua Group, was trying to befriend. Yet, now, these two people were taking the initiative to attend Shi Feng's class. Meanwhile, Shortly after Wu Xiaoxiao and instructor Qi entered Shi Feng's classroom, waves quickly spread throughout the campus. What's going on? Who is this instructor Shi? How did he get Wu Xiaoxiao and 2 of the Academy's heavenly kings to attend his class? Could this instructor Shi be some big shot that came from another city? That's not right. I know that instructor Shi. If I remember correctly, he should be Shadow's former guild leader. He only came to work as an instructor after Shadow dismissed him. Are you sure that's not a mistake? Even if Gu Yiren were to hold a class right now, Instructor Qi and Senior Wu Xiaoxiao wouldn't necessarily attend it. It is especially true for Senior Wu Xiaoxiao. She is currently being nurtured as a top-tier talent by Crimson Emperor. It wouldn't be long before she enters the A-League at this rate. Unless Instructor Shi has incredibly high combat standards, why would she attend his class? Many students were originally unfamiliar with Shi Feng's name. However, thanks to Wu Xiaoxiao and the others, Shi Feng had instantly become the center of attention of the entire academy. After all, whether it was Wu Xiaoxiao or the academy's 4 heavenly kings, every one of them had a dazzling future ahead of them. The fact that these people chose to attend Shi Feng's class proved that he wasn't ordinary by any means. For a time, some students started fervently looking into Shi Feng's history. In the meantime, inside the faculty office near the teaching block, "Yeyu, this academy of yours really is interesting," Zhou Yalin, wearing a short black dress, said as she lazily pointed at a document displaying Shi Feng's information. To think that the famous Silver Witch in God's domain would go out of her way to attend a junior instructor's lesson. Is this guy really just the former guild leader of Shadow? That is the case on paper, at the very least, Lin Yeyu said as she sorted through the documents on her desk. However, judging by how he behaves, I find it hard to believe that he is a former guild leader dismissed by his guild. He behaves more like a laid-back princeling instead. In that case, he shouldn't be as simple as he looks. He might even be hiding a lot of secrets. Otherwise, there is no reason why the Silver Witch would attend his class, Zhou Yalin said, a hint of interest appearing in her eyes as she looked at Shi Feng's photo. It really makes you wonder what was going through Lan Hailong's mind to actually exclude such an individual from his guild. Hearing Zhou Yalin's words, Lin Yeyu grew a little exasperated as she said, "Shi Feng might be extraordinary, but he is still far from being a match for Mr. Black Flame. Have you thought over my proposal yet? I understand your point. Joining Zero Wing in a personal capacity is indeed a good idea for us. However, after thinking it through, I feel that it is best if you give your slot to Big Sis first," Zhou Yalin said, her originally lazy expression suddenly becoming serious. "You and I both know what kind of talent and strength Big Sis possesses. She is, without a doubt, a monster-class expert. If not for her family holding her down, she would have long since become a big shot in God's domain. If she can join Zero Wing, it might help resolve her predicament. At that time, with Big Sis's talent, it shouldn't take long before she acquires an invitation slot. It wouldn't be late for me to join at that time. Big Sis, is it?" A hint of excitement appeared in Lin Yeyu's eyes when she heard Zhou Yalin's words. "You're right. That might be for the better if we can persuade Big Sis. I'll try to contact her within the next few days." Lin Yeyu had nothing but praise and admiration for the person she and Zhou Yalin referred to as Big Sis. If not for some problems their Big Sis faced with her family and guild during the early years of God's domain, she would have probably been standing at the top of God's domain right now. Moreover, even before God's domain's launch, their Big Sis had already been regarded as one of the goddesses in the virtual gaming world. The Snow Goddess, Gentle Snow.